Hi, I'm Zulma with Remax Associates,
Hi, I'm Nancy Oliveris with Prime Lending.
and we are your real estate collaborative divorce specialists. And today we have a special guest. Want to introduce yourself, Will?
Hey, I'm Will Gray. I'm an account executive over at WFG National Title Company here in Orange County. And we are a self-underwritten title company, truly national. And yeah, we work hard.
Fantastic. So just to briefly kind of go over what Nancy and I specialize in is we specialize in collaborative divorce.
Mhm.
So we work with professionals prior to mediation, and we help divorcing families. Um, we connect them with professionals to help them make the best decision possible prior to divorce.
Yeah.
Because once it's in mediation, it's permanent. And one thing that we found is the courts don't save you from your own bad decisions. So, unfortunately, so we try to gather a network of professionals to help them make the best decision possible. So, a couple days ago, you and I were discussing horror stories that happen in the title world. So that was a good story. Why don't you share that with us?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, most the problems that we see from title during a divorce have to do with communication or the lack thereof. We had one, actually, our sales manager, a friend of his, going through a divorce, and we were doing the title work. The title officer actually called our sales manager late in the transaction. Things were moving towards close, and everything had been going smooth. And then he gets a call that says, hey, we're not going to be able to close this transaction. It's fraudulent. There's a forged deed involved.
Oh.
Yeah. So our manager, very surprised because it's a personal friend, calls his friend and says, hey, we can't do this. We have a forgery. And his friend was not happy, a little upset to be, he felt like accused of attempted fraud, right?
Right, right.
And kind of didn't leave the call in a good place, but then called back the next day, apologetic. It turned out the wife, the soon-to-be ex-wife of my sales manager's friend, and he had gotten together and signed. They thought everything that they needed for the transaction, and then she discovered that his signature was not on the grant deed, which, as you know, is very important for what we do.
Yeah.
That's what transfers ownership, and his signature on that had been forged by his wife. And he'd called her, and she said, "Oh yeah, I didn't have your signature, so I just, went ahead and forged it." Fortunately, because they were able to get into communication, we were able to have the grant deed redone and signed correctly by both actual parties, and actually close that transaction. So there's at least a happy ending to that one, right?
That's true. That's true. But I'm sure the moments leading up to that were stressful.
Very tense, yeah.
So you basically cleaned the chain of title there in that particular scenario.
I cleaned it, or more correctly, like prevented it from being severely contaminated by a forged deed, right? From a title insurance and risk management perspective, it's just, in no way acceptable to have a forged signature
Right.
that we're relying on to close and insure the transaction. The future buyers have had a hell of a time selling or refinancing that one. So we got to have the actual signature,
Right, of course.
in the
Okay,
story.
good. Yeah, and sorry, that's what I meant by cleaning the
Yeah,
chain of titles,
of
going to
course.
the proper channel, so
Yeah,
the proper
yeah.
individuals. So good. Uh, Now, Nancy actually helps some of the homeowners that are sometimes you have a couple where
Hmm.
one of the members of the divorcing couple wants to stay in the home, so they have to refinance the other person out of the home.
Yeah.
So do you have any best practices for escrows in that scenario?
Uh, yeah, I mean, most of the problems, like I mentioned, come from a lack of communication, which in these situations, I definitely understandable that, this might not be the person you most want to talk to. people might not be dealing with each other in a reasonable way, but as much as possible, first and foremost, if you can communicate in an open and business-like way about the assets that you're dealing with through a divorce, that's going to make everything so much easier. And in general, as a protection kind of against any failings there, any agreement, anything that gets done in or out of court, keep as much documentation as you can. Keep copies, or even better, originals of everything. I think sometimes people assume that if they have, a settlement or something happens in court and the judge, for instance, awards the property to one party, there's an assumption, I think, that we suddenly get that information or receive it from the county. That's not the way it works. We need to actually be given those copies. And, it's never personal that we don't accept one party's side of the story just on them telling it. We have to be very neutral and, of course, make sure that everyone who's appeared on title has their rights respected and properly handled in these transactions.
Those are good points.
Absolutely.
Those are really good points. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Anything you want to add to that, Nancy?
Well, we, like Will had mentioned, a lot of people are not talking to each other during this circumstance, right? It's unfortunately, it's not a great circumstance to be in, but at the end of the day, we're here to help people be in a better position and plan for their future, really. So their future after divorce. Right. So it's really important to work with a team like us that really care for our clients. We have a great partnership with Title, and we're able to really dig in, see what liens are on the property, back taxes, and really just make sure that both individuals are in a good position after the divorce. We want to make sure that not one party is stuck with the liens or having to deal with, let me refinance. I got to get this guy off a title now because I own the home. But if you don't qualify for the loan, then you can't keep the home, unfortunately. Right. So it's really important to do this before the divorce is finalized and working with a good team like us.
Absolutely, I agree. Now, if the person is unable to refinance, or the couple, I should say, and they have to sell, then of course I would love to be the person that they consider when they do sell the home. And prior to that, I am happy to manage the project in terms of all the house homework that's involved prior to actually selling the property. And of course, Nancy and I, you and I both work together, so we're happy to help our team with the house homework. And part of that house homework is actually connecting with Will from WFG Title and getting, now how easy is it to get a prelim if we ever had to get a prelim, or is it possible to just call Title to find out if the property does have any liens? What would be the easier avenue?
Yeah, it's generally simpler and faster if you're not in a transaction yet or an active listing situation to just contact a title company directly and have them look into the chain of title for any potential liens, red flags that might be an obstacle in the transaction, especially in fraught situations. You want to get those in the open as early as possible. Preliminary report will have all that information. It also has a lot more about the property, about just title insurance in general, that's really only pertinent to a transaction. And it takes, depending on the company and on whether there's, an active pandemic going on, it can take from 1 to 2 to a few days to generate that complete report. Whereas if you talk directly to a title company, outside of the context of the actual preliminary report document, you can get that, within the same day easily, usually within a matter of an hour or two, right?
Oh, wow.
And
okay.
you also have someone like the start of a conversation, like, okay, well, how is this going to affect the transaction? What potential avenues do we have to remove this item from title or, work or write around it, right?
Right. Okay, good. That's good information. Now, if anybody that's watching this, if they wanted to contact you directly and had any questions regarding title, how would they contact you?
They can call, text, or email anytime. My cell is 949-280-8171. And my email, a little more confusing just to say out loud, but it's wgray@WFG, stands for Williston Financial Group, WFGTitleCo.com.
Fantastic. We'll share that on the link afterwards. And Nancy, anything you want to add or let us know how we can contact you?
Well, if anyone is interested in looking to keep the home, refinance their soon-to-be ex-spouse off the loan, definitely contact me at 714-625-1298. You can call, text. You can reach me through my website, which is www.nancyoliveris.com. That's to apply online. Definitely log on there.
Fantastic. And I am Zulma with Remax Associates. And if you have any questions for me regarding buying or selling a home, you can reach me at zulmaarizmendi@gmail.com or 949-514-0443 or my website, realtorzulma.com. And thanks, Will, for being with us today. And it's always great seeing you, Nancy.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.